There's a lot of things that women could do but men couldn't, like giving birth to a child, stealing sweatshirts from boyfriends as if it's basic human right, and that's why my sweatshirt was never stolen. And of course, being an anomaly agent in Zenless Zone 0 is about to be 2.0 already, and there's still no male anomaly. Like, what are you doing? But I love the direction. Not only that Anomaly has to be female, they either need to have abnormal size and also disorderly physics that makes Newton's law a joke, like the recent one even have the rocket booster under her skirt. And the other thing they have in common is that they gotta be very, 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 very hot. I know you are like 40 or 50s, but I'm not gonna take any chance on that. Anomaly and how it works. Actually, I know exactly how Anomaly works inside out, even before Anomaly agents are released. And from what I'm aware, there's no videos out there breaks down the Anomaly the way I do. And I really do think that I know about Anomaly more than any content creators out there. I even predicts Vivian's kit back in like 7 months ago. But in Ether, you have to hit the enemy every 0.5 second, which you can realistically lose about 30 to 40% of damage in practice, unless they came out with Anomaly characters that has some kind of mechanics to compensate this. Yeah, I was trying to hide my identity by just putting up wigs and that ridiculous sunglasses. And sorry for the accent and audio, by the way. I wasn't really used to speaking English back then. It sounds insufferable to me. It's like digging out some of my worst moments in the past. The videos in itself made a lot of deep dive on Anomaly and Disorder, and I tested all of them, but I was doing a pretty bad job on explaining it. But in this video, we are not going to do any deep dive on the mechanics and focus on things that would improve your gameplay. But if you have any question on the mechanics, you can ask me about anything in the comments. So basically, Anomaly is a unique mechanics in the Zenless Zone 0. It's actually pretty hard to understand because it has 6 different kinds of elements and each of them behave differently. But they are also very, very easy to execute, and with a suboptimal easy to do rotation, you could already bring out about 80 to 90% of the potential. And now I'm gonna explain the basic. You could fill these circles up and it's gonna trigger the Anomaly, and usually it's gonna last 10 seconds. Different kind of attribute would give different kinds of damage. Some looks higher than the others, but it actually doesn't matter at all, because if you're not playing Anomaly characters, the amount of damage is totally negligible, unless you are using the disk drive that would benefit from the Anomaly. Like the most typical one would be Julian and Nicole's combi, because Nicole could build a lot of Anomaly. The Chingy skill would also build a lot of Anomaly, and that would benefit DPS that is using Thunder Metal Forset. Or when you are playing Sokaku, who has really fast Anomaly build-up rate that synergize really well with Miyabi. And if you're playing Anomaly characters, it doesn't matter which attribute is stronger. They would come up with some bullshit that would make this Anomaly character strong, like Jando's crit damage on the physical Anomaly is the most straightforward one. Fire would give you damage over time. Electrics and Ether also give you damage over time, but conditionally. You gotta hit the enemy every second or every half second to have the damage to procs. Like one of the Vivian's kit is to procs and attacks on the enemy every half second, completely right off. The only downside of Ether. And keep in mind that you could overbuild your Anomaly. Like let's say if I have 99% of the Anomaly here, and if I use ultimate, you're gonna waste all of it. And the same with the skill. You could fill up almost half of it with one skill, but if I'm using it at 99%, the rest of it is gonna be wasted. And when you're applying Anomaly, don't forget to buff, because the way that Anomaly calculate its damage is you get what you hit. If you attack the enemy with your buff on, it will reflect in the final damage. But if you don't and buff it on the last second, you wouldn't get any benefit out of it, except the buff from Yanagi's skill and Nicole's skill. Those could apply at the last second and wouldn't have any issue, and you would get 100% of the benefit. It actually activate on hit, so you don't have to worry about pre-hitting it first to get the buff. You would get the buff at the moment you hit it, and also the breaks multiplier from stun. You can't do one of those, you building up the anomaly with weaker characters and have stronger characters to trigger it and expect 100% of the damage from the stronger characters. So I'm gonna test this with Piper and Nekomata. So if I build up 100% of the anomaly with Nekomata and trigger it with the Piper, I would only get the Nekomata's anomaly damage. But if I do it other way around, I build up 100% with the Piper, then let Nekomata to trigger it, I would get 100% of Piper's damage. But if I build 50% with Nekomata and the other 50% with Piper, I would get somewhere in between. So there's no room to be a smartass with this. And I think the #1 mistake that people are doing when they are playing Anomaly is swapping characters too quickly. Because swapping could cancel the trigger. I could do this all day and it's not gonna proc the Anomaly. So you gotta pay extra attention to some of the movement of the characters. Like Miyabi's hold attacks is definitely one of the clunkiest one, Jando's quick assist, dodge attacks and the basic 5, Yanagi's basic 5, and Piper's heavy attacks at the end of using skill. And Astra quick assist doesn't immune to this, so you gotta pay extra attention when you are playing Anomaly team with Astra. Just keep an eye on the enemy to see that your Anomaly is proxed or not, then you swap after that. And if you apply different kinds of Anomaly on top of that within 10 seconds, you're gonna get this extra damage called Disorder. So ideally, you wanna proc the Disorder interchangeably, and the damage of Disorder is 100% based off the initial Anomaly that you applied it. The output of the damage has absolutely nothing to do with the follow-up Anomaly. Like let's say if I apply Fire attribute first, and I apply Electrics on top of that with Anbi, and I got this Disorder damage, and the amount of damage is 100% coming from Soldier 11, and Anbi contribute absolutely nothing other than triggering the Disorder. And if I apply Fire with Soldier 11 on top of Anbi's Electro, and this Disorder damage would be 100% coming from Anbi. And what this Disorder does is that it gives extra damage. You would get 45% extra damage from the Fire Anomaly, you got 76 extra damage from Physical, 102 from the Ice, 51 from Electrics and Ether. But the Frost attribute gives significant more. It's 166%. So that's why triggering Disorder on Miyabi is so important, cause you would be losing a tons of damage for not proxing it. And you might be hearing this a lot. You wanna proc the Disorder as soon as possible in order to get the most damage out of it. But you know what? As somebody who figured it inside out, I know exactly how much damage you lost if you trigger it late. It doesn't really matter if you trigger it early or not, cause the amount of damage lost is just simply negligible. Like for Fire, if you trigger it at the last second, you're gonna lose absolutely 0% of the damage. When you compare to the one that procs instantly, you could see that you got significantly less Disorder damage on the Fire if you trigger it later, but I promise that the amount of damage that you got are exactly the same, cause you already got those damage from the damage overtime up here. It doesn't count the damage that you already procs, and you would lose about 7% on the Physical if you trigger it at the last second, and you would lose even less with Jane though, which is about 3%, cause her damage scale differently. And for the Ice, you lose about 5%, which is also negligible. But the only unit that could build up Ice Anomaly quickly is Sokaku, and you don't want to expect a lot of Anomaly damage from the Sokaku anyway. Ether and Electrics are kind of tricky, and you could lose a lot of damage from Electrics and Ether if you don't keep hitting the enemy, cause they could only proc when you are hitting the enemy actively. But for the Frost, you could lose a tons of damage, up to like 58% if you trigger it at the 19 seconds. So the only Anomaly that actually matters to trigger the Disorder as soon as possible is the Frost, the Miyabi's exclusive attribute. It matters a little bit on Ethers, which is for the upcoming Vivian, and Electrics for the Grace and Yanagi, but not as much as Miyabi's attribute. The last thing I want to talk about the Anomaly is the passive ability from Bernice and Rina. It's gonna extend 3 seconds of Anomaly, and it actually counts as 30% flat DPS increase. I'm not so sure about the Jane though, cause I can't really test that. So just keep in mind when you see the characters with the passive that would extend the Anomaly duration. So yeah, I hope that would help you to prepare for the 1.7. And don't forget to like and sub. If you have anything to ask, just leave it in the comment. I will answer all of it. And see ya guys.